So, in today's live, we are going to cover two major news stories. One of them is that Amazon's CEO woke up this morning and metaphorically chose a little bit of violence. So, we're going to go through a memo where the CEO of Amazon basically shared with his corporate employees this morning, hey, we're going back to the office. You're returning back to the office 5 days a week, starting January 2nd, whether you like it or not. And then a second story that will most likely affect you if you have a child that is in elementary, middle, or high school. Mostly elementary or middle school, though. So let's get to these stories. With the first story of Amazon CEO coming out and announcing that corporate employees will be returning back to work 5 days a week, I'm going to actually share the LinkedIn news announcement. And then we're going to go into the actual memo that the CEO shared. And then we're going to go into the response that people on X or Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, how they have reacted. So the first thing is to go to LinkedIn News, and I'm going to share my screen. So as you can see here, it says Amazon unveils 5-day return to office plan. This was updated 3 hours ago, written by Andrew Barker, editor at LinkedIn News. So Amazon's corporate employees will be returning to the office 5 days a week, starting January 2nd. CEO Andy Jassy revised the company's hybrid work policy in a memo on Monday, writing that he wants Amazon to quote unquote operate like the world's largest startup, which he says requires employees to be quote unquote joined at the hip with teammates when inventing and solving hard problems. Jassy also announced that he wants to reduce managerial bloat, asking senior execs to increase the ratio of individual contributors to managers by at least 15% in their departments by the end of Q1 2025. So basically, they have to return to the office 5 days a week starting January 2nd, and they have to increase the ratio of individual contributors to managers. So they want less managerial bloat, they want less managers by at least 15% by the end of Q1 2025. So we're going to go into how LinkedIn is responding to this and then go into the actual memo that the CEO put out there, the CEO from Amazon put out there, go into, maybe what he could have done differently with this memo. Of course, everything is easier in retrospect. But what we can maybe learn as small business owners, what this means for small business, there's a lot of talent that is going to leave Amazon now. And one of the leverage points that you may have if you're a small business owner is the fact that you do offer, remote work. A lot of these people will become consultants. So if you have a consultancy, that could be more competition as well. So we'll get into all of that. But let's get into some of the top reactions to this. So one of the top reactions right here by Dominic Namis, Amazon just announced that employees need to return to the office 5 days per week, despite doing hybrid 3 days in office, 2 remote for the last 15 months, and their stock price increasing by 100% in the last 4 years. They are forcing employees back to their assigned desks. That was another thing in the memo that we're going to cover. I guess they had unassigned desks, but now they're even going to have their assigned seating back. And in the memo, we will see that he gives a lot of reasoning to other things, but he doesn't give any reasoning to the assigned desk. As the employer, they have full control of this, but employees can also choose where to take their talents. I've spoken to dozens of Amazon employees who are already secretly looking for new jobs, which means that they're probably scoping stuff on LinkedIn. So again, if you're a small business owner and you want to capture some of this talent that will be leaving Amazon and you offer remote work opportunities, then so be it. Because most people don't like being told what to do and they want to be able to make their own choice. Okay, Let's go to some of these comments here. I wish I was a recruiter now. This would be so easy. I think this was inevitable as large companies employ layers of managers whose value depends largely on in-person skills. Angry face emoji for Amazon. Good news for recruiters, ex-Amazoners on the hunt. Tell me you're living in the 20th century without... They're enforcing this to keep the tax cut they're receiving from the city. I don't know if that's true. This is a big mistake. Luckily, only about 4% of US CEOs want to go in this route, but Amazon sure makes a lot of noise, and it makes it seem like everyone is returning. This is something that we will look at when we look at Twitter's response, or people who are on X, their response. Now that Amazon is basically like, hey, employees, you have to come back to the office 5 days a week, like it or not, starting January 2nd. It kind of gives the okay signal for bigger companies to follow suit that haven't done so already. This is awful, but unfortunately, there's so many talented unemployed people who would gladly take an offer from Amazon. That's one way to look at it. If people are happier, more productive at home, leave them be. So this is kind of LinkedIn's take on it. You could see from the comments. And whenever something is trending on LinkedIn, you could always, click home. And then on the right-hand side, you could see like the news. So Amazon unveils. This is also a good way for you to potentially connect with some of these people, like reporters and, people who are thought leaders in some of this stuff. Senior product manager tech at Amazon. So I actually want to look at his post because he works there. Amazon just announced 5 days per week in the office for the entire company starting January 2025. They also stated that they're aiming to reduce the number of managers. Here are my thoughts. Return to office. This is a slightly archaic return to form from this previous 3-day per week return to office policy. This will definitely impact a lot of people's lives, but I think Amazon has partially grown too large for them to trust employees at scale to self-manage their time when working from home. Manager culture. Jassy aims to reduce how many levels of management there are within the company, which I agree with. Amazon's innovation has slowed due to an increasingly bureaucratic decision-making process. Jassy describes this as pre-meetings for the decision meetings, a longer line of managers feeling like they need to review a topic before it moves forward. And I think they hit the nail on the head. I recently also posted about how more tech companies are leaning back into people having the skills needed to perform roles rather than just managing for the sake of managing. I think that's interesting because he's kind of supporting it, and he's a senior product manager at Amazon, which, probably means like he'll probably be in the office. So, just take that with a grain of salt. Let's go to the actual memo that the CEO shared. And again, I want to hear your thoughts. If you're listening, just share in the comments. Do you think this is a good move for Amazon, or do you think it will actually backfire on them? So let's actually review the official memo. So this is on their company website. It says, message from CEO Andy Jassy, strengthening our culture and teams. This message below was shared with Amazon employees today. Hey team, I wanted to send a note on a couple changes we're making to further strengthen our culture and teams. First, for perspective, I feel good about the progress we're making together. Stores, AWS, and advertising continue to grow on very large bases. Prime Video continues to expand. And new investment areas like Gen AI, Quipper, never heard of that before, healthcare, and several others are evolving. And at the same time, we're growing and inventing. We're also continuing to make progress on our cost structure and operating margins, which isn't easy to do. Overall, I like the direction in which we're heading and appreciate the hard work of our teams globally. When I think about my time at Amazon, I never imagined I'd be at the company for 27 years. I don't know. We'll read this. I don't know why this was added, or I feel like I've seen some sales, not Salesforce, some Shopify updates. Shopify CEO has a great way of doing videos that update their customers and the team and things like that. And I really feel like a lot of CEOs miss a huge opportunity with doing these things only text. If he were to do a video, maybe it would feel a lot more heartfelt, or maybe the context and stuff that he's adding and the build up would make a lot more sense versus trying to be emotional and then basically saying you better get back in the office at the end of this. But that's just my opinion. I also lean towards video just as someone that consumes content, so I have a serious bias there. When I think about my time at Amazon, I never imagined I'd be at the company for 27 years. My plan, which my wife and I agreed to on a bar napkin in 1997, was to be here a few years and move back to NYC. Part of why I've stayed has been the unprecedented growth. We had 15 million of annual revenue the year before I joined. This year, we should be well north of 600 billion. That is serious growth in 27 years. The perpetual hunger to invent, the obsession with making customers' lives easier and better every day, and the associated opportunities these priorities present. But the biggest reason I'm still here is our culture. Being so customer focused is an inspiring part of it, but it's also the people we work with, the way we collaborate and invent when we're at our best, our long-term perspective, and the ownership I've always felt at every level I've worked. I started as a level 5, whatever that means. The speed with which we make decisions and move, and the lack of bureaucracy and politics. This is going to kind of make sense as we go along in the memo, because he basically shares that a lot of this decision was made due to an increase in bureaucracy. Our culture is unique and has been one of the most critical parts of our success in our first 29 years. But keeping your culture strong is not a birthright. You have to work at it all the time. When you consider the breadth of our businesses, their associated growth rates, the innovation required across each of them, and the number of people we've hired the last 6 to 8 years to pursue these endeavors, it's pretty unusual and will stretch even the strongest of cultures. Strengthening our culture remains a top priority for the S team and me, and I think about it all the time. This is interesting because he's like, we hired so many people in the last 6 to 8 years, and then he talks about how they need to get leaner, basically. We want to operate like the world's largest startup. This means having a passion for constantly inventing for customers, strong urgency for most big opportunities. It's a race. High ownership, fast decision-making, scrappiness, and frugality, deeply connected collaboration. You need to be joined at the hip with your teammates when inventing and solving hard problems, and a shared commitment to each other. 2 areas that the S team and I have been thinking about the last several months are: 1, do we have the right org structure to drive the level of ownership and speed we desire? 2, are we set up to invent, collaborate, and be connected enough to each other and our culture to deliver the absolute best for customers and the business that we can? We think we can be better on both. On the first topic, we've always sought to hire very smart, high judgment, inventive, delivery-focused, and missionary teammates, and we have always wanted the people doing the actual detailed work to have high ownership. As we have grown our teams as quickly and substantially as we have the last many years, we have understandably added a lot of managers. And he's basically about to say, now we have to get rid of some, which is terrible, but yeah. In that process, we have also added more layers than we had before. It's created artifacts that we'd like to change. Pre-meetings for the decision meetings, a longer line of managers feeling like they need to review a topic before it moves forward, owners of initiative feeling less like they should make recommendations because the decision will be made elsewhere. Most decisions we make are two-way doors, and as such, we want more of our teammates feeling like they can move fast without unnecessary processes, meetings, mechanisms, and layers that create overhead and waste valuable time. That's pretty bold. That create overhead and waste valuable time. Okay, so we're asking each S-team organization to increase the ratio of individual contributors to managers by at least 15% by the end of Q1 2025. Having fewer managers will remove layers and flatten organizations more than they are today. So again, they want to decrease the ratio of increase the ratio of individual contributors to managers by at least 15%. So they need to decrease managers. Having fewer managers will remove layers and flatten organizations more than they are today. If we do this work well, it will increase our teammates' ability to move fast, clarify, and invigorate their sense of ownership, drive decision-making closer to the front lines where it most impacts customers and the business, decrease bureaucracy, and strengthen our organization's ability to make customers' lives better and easier every day. We will do this thoughtfully, and our PXT team, I don't know what this is, PNT, will work closely with our leaders to evolve our organizations to accomplish these goals over the next few months. By the way, I've created a bureaucracy mailbox for any examples any of you see where we might have bureaucracy or unnecessary process that's crept in and we can root out. To be clear, companies need process to run effectively, and process does not equal bureaucracy, but unnecessary and excessive process or rules should be called out and extinguished. I will read these emails and action them accordingly. I'm actually surprised by this. It's assuming, or it kind of seems like it's assuming, that this hasn't been called out prior, which I don't know. I don't work at Amazon, but I'm sure that as they've grown, a lot of maybe the previous people would be like, why is this so complicated? Why did this process turn into this? And so I'm sure they probably have like a whole slew of emails or complaints or a whole slew of internal feedback that could immediately be tagged bureaucracy mailbox that are already in their emails. But let's proceed. To address the second issue of being better set up to invent, collaborate, and be connected enough to each other in our culture to deliver the absolute best for customers and the business. I love how like customers and the business over and over again. Okay. I'll comment on that later. We've decided that we're going to return to being in the office the way that we were before the onset of COVID. This is actually also interesting because it's a long memo, which I thought memos were supposed to be much shorter, but again, I'm not a corporate savant. And I love how like it's just interweaved. This really could have been like a 2-bullet email, which is like, hey, we need to reduce managers and we're returning to the office 5 days a week. And we're doing this for customers and the business. But, to address the second issue of being better set up to invent, collaborate, and be connected enough to each other in our culture to deliver the absolute best for customers and the business, we've decided that we're going to return to being in the office the way we were before the onset of COVID. When we look back over the last 5 years, we continue to believe that the advantages of being together in the office are significant. I've previously explained these benefits, February 2023 post, but in summary, we've observed that it's easier for our teammates to learn, model, practice, and strengthen our culture. What's interesting to me is I'm surprised, I'm sure they do. I'm surprised they haven't actually, like, do they have data? They could just say, hey, when we do the models, the more time we spend together, the more this and this goes up. And they could share the data and be kind of transparent so that the employees understand and the team understands, like, we're not just making this decision to make it, but it's actually supported by all this data. But again, let's proceed. Collaborating, brainstorming, and inventing are simpler and more effective. Teaching and learning from one another are more seamless, and teams tend to be better connected to one another. And again, they could say, like, 14,000 of you said in this survey we took on this date. But again, if anything, the last 15 months we've been back in the office at least 3 days a week has strengthened our conviction about the benefits. So I guess the last 15 months they said, hey, we're coming back to the office 3 days a week, and all of this stuff has fortified their decision to move back to 5 days a week. Before the pandemic, not everybody was in the office 5 days a week, every week. If you or your child were sick, if you had some sort of house emergency, if you were on the road seeing customers or partners, if you needed a day or two to finish coding in a more isolated environment, people worked remotely. This was understood and will be moving forward. But before the pandemic, it was not a given that folks could work remotely 2 days a week, and that will also be true moving forward. Our expectation is that people will be in the office outside of extenuating circumstances like the ones mentioned above, or if you already have a remote work exception approved through your S-team leader. We are also going to bring back assigned desk arrangements. in locations that were previously organized that way, including the US headquarters locations. 4 locations that had agile desk arrangements before the pandemic, including much of Europe, we will continue to operate that way. We understand that some of our teammates may have set up their personal lives in such a way that returning to the office consistently 5 days per week will require some adjustments. You don't say. Like, yeah, for sure. I mean, just in childcare alone, but let's proceed. To help ensure a smooth transition, we're going to make this new expectation active in just 3 months. Active on January 2nd, 2025. Global Real Estate and Facilities is working on a plan to accommodate desk arrangements mentioned above and will communicate the details as they are finalized. They probably found that when they choose where to sit, you probably sit by a friend and then you probably talk a lot more, and maybe they don't want that. I don't know. I'm just assuming. I want to thank our leaders and support teams in advance for the work they will do to improve their org structures over the coming months. With a company of our size and complexity, the work won't be trivial, and it will test our collective ability to invent and simplify when it comes to how we organize and go after the meaningful opportunities we have across all our businesses. This is really long for a memo. Maybe it's not, because I didn't spend much time in corporate, but it seems like it. Having the right culture at Amazon is something I don't take for granted. I continue to believe that we are all here because we want to make a difference in customers' lives, invent on their behalf, and move quickly to solve their problems. I'm optimistic that these changes will better help us accomplish these goals while strengthening our culture and the effectiveness of our teams. Thanks, Andy. So that is the official memo written by the CEO of Amazon, Andy Jassy. And now we're going to go to x.com, previously known as Twitter, and see how people are responding there compared to LinkedIn. I work here. Yeah, so someone who works at Amazon is on the stream right now. That's very interesting. A video would 100% feel a bit different since the message was buried. I don't understand that. It should have, honestly, I went to ChatGPT and I was like, explain this without all the corporate talk. And it basically said, hey, to make our teams more effective, we are reducing managers by 15%, and everyone is coming back to work 5 days a week. The fact that it wasn't even bolded or italicized, and there was so much build up to that, was kind of like hidden in the message. I don't know. It just it didn't feel good reading the message. Felt a little bit elusive. Okay. So let me share my screen and see how people on X are responding. So breaking, Amazon has told its employees to return to office 5 days a week. So Andrew, a company that literally makes all their money from online shopping and cloud services, is going to make their employees come to the office 5 days a week? Question mark. Make it make sense. The thing is the transparency is kind of, if they're like, hey, we have more competitors out there, for the business to continue to grow at this rate, we did all this data, and the more that we're in the office, the more we just hit these targets. And we understand how hard it's going to be. We're going to provide all, and I don't know what they provide, right? But we're going to help with travel costs, childcare, whatever. But we need to be in the office. It just seems like it'd be more honest and feel more transparent. And with the video, Amazon lays off tens of thousands of workers, which is like the correction here. Return to office policies are a way for companies to hide layoffs. So this is kind of going around with this announcement on X, that basically they put out this announcement for people to kind of say, I'm not returning on their own, so that they don't have to go through layoffs and kind of, hide them, so to speak. At least 20% of them will be looking for new jobs. True. And there's a lot of great people at Amazon. So again, if you're a small business that offers remote work opportunities, you're in a position of leverage. Also, if you're someone at Amazon who maybe wants to start their own thing, you can check out some of our videos on the channel on how to actually do so on LinkedIn and to start marketing whatever business you will be building, on LinkedIn. What an archaic way of conducting business. Back to the Stone Age. This is the same company that has grown its revenue 51% since work from home has been normalized. Sounds more like a way to create voluntary layoffs. That's the thing that I don't understand is if they had so much revenue growth, well, revenue doesn't equal profit, right? So as a business owner, I understand that. And he kind of alluded to like the difficulty that they're having with the margins, which means that for the money that they're making, how much are they actually keeping after all expenses? So, but if they've had so much growth with the work from home, that's the thing that's like, they should have added some data. Productivity is far too low with work from home employees. We didn't allow it. We adjusted schedules instead. Elon knew what he was doing. I don't know what Elon has to do with Amazon. This is short-term bearish for Amazon. It means they're having productivity and management issues. If you work at Amazon, share what you think in the comments, or if you work at a big company, if you have more corporate experience than me, because, share what you think in the comments. This is what poorly managed companies with falling revenues do. I'm not sure if Amazon has falling revenues, but we'll see. This is interesting. I'd take a $30,000 pay cut to keep working remote. So this is kind of X.com's response to this. And I'm sure, like I said, a lot of people from Amazon are probably already thinking of looking for new work opportunities. And I'm going to go back to the comments. People in the office are so pissed today. The bureaucracy inbox is already full. Every time the company does something, they send out these long-winded responses. Yeah, it seems kind of unemotional. Again, I have no idea what this is like leading a company at this scale, but I do see other CEOs tackle these things better, like the CEO of Shopify. He will actually release a video. He's looking into the camera. He's sharing a lot of context, and reading something, we could put our personality into it, our attitude into it, our view of the world into it. But if you do a video, just all those little things matter. Like, do you even look like you care or not? Yeah, it's very unemotional. But I mean, smile. like the Amazon logo, I guess, just if you work there and you're like, my whole life is set up for remote work, just kind of look at this as a blessing in disguise and start making your moves. Okay, so the second story that we are going, and I'll kind of go into, I'll share some things with the CEO of Shopify, like how he's announced certain things in the future. There is a PR expert who I believe is on his team that is on X, and she is phenomenal in breaking down some of this stuff, what CEOs do wrong, what brands do wrong, missed opportunity to connect with not just customers, but also employees. And as a customer reading that kind of does affect the way that I see Amazon. Is like, if you treat your employees, like your team, so unemotionally, it changes the perception that I have of the brand, whether they are aware of it or not. Okay, so the second story that I'm going to share today will 100% affect you if you have a child in elementary school or middle school. It is already affecting me, and we'll get into what it is. So KSI, Logan Paul, and Mr. Beast are launching Lunchly. Mr. Beast, KSI, and Logan Paul are releasing Lunchly, a Lunchables competitor. It will feature Prime, Feastables chocolate, and a variation of food. So if you're not in America, and I don't know where they sell Lunchables, but I'm saying America because we're known to be like the worst eaters and processed foods and things like that, right? So a lot of kids that are in elementary school and middle school in America, they eat these things, and I'll kind of put them up here, Lunchables. They eat kind of a snack lunch thing called Lunchables. And I mean, Lunchables has been out forever. Let me see. Let me show you. Lunchables products. So this is kind of their products, right? It's like a box with processed food, and kids bring this to lunch instead of like packing their own lunch, some kids, and they have like pizza and they can make their stuff. So I think it's interesting that like Logan Paul has brand Prime, which is kind of a competitor to Gatorade. Mr. Beast has Feastables, which he wants to compete with Hershey's, is a competitor to Hershey's chocolate. And they have collaborated, Mr. Beast being the biggest YouTuber on the planet, Logan Paul being a huge YouTuber, and them starting around the same time on YouTube, going all in. I mean, from a marketing perspective, you have to give them credit, right? Especially as someone who has watched more so Logan, less so Mr. Beast, kind of rise to fame through YouTube. And, first it was Vine, then YouTube. And, he's had a lot of controversial things and stuff, but he did pop off with Prime as the first product, and now this, and their collaboration together. I mean, I bet it's going to really sell. I can tell you that as someone with a 7-year-old, I was already asked, where can we buy it? Not that I'm going to, but there's going to be a lot of kids that will kind of even use this as a status thing. Like, oh, Lunchly is cooler than Lunchables. And they will want their parents to buy it just because they know Mr. Beast. Like, my 7-year-old knows who Mr. Beast is. And the second she found out about it, that it was Mr. Beast Lunchables, she doesn't call it Lunchly. She said Mr. Beast Lunchables. She said she wanted it because she knows him. And that it's so as from a marketing perspective, it's like you have to give them credit. They're making moves. And the fact that they're doing this through their personal brands, building billion-dollar businesses on the back end of their personal brands is phenomenal. As a mom, this person has a lot of power, right? So they're the most watched YouTube channel, maybe with kids, or like a lot of his audience are kids. They buy his chocolate. Now they're going to potentially be eating his lunch stuff a lot of times during the week. And it just, whatever it is that they sell, they will probably buy for a lot of their life. And so, I just think that this was interesting because they both have been part of the first YouTubers that will really build massive physical product brands with their personal brands. Logan with Prime, Mr. Beast with Feastables, KSI with Prime. So KSI and Logan are business partners, and now they've both collaborated for this. And it doesn't seem like this will be their last physical product either. And I bet it's going to sell a lot. So that's very interesting to note. Not really sure, what your thoughts are on that. I just thought it was very interesting. But more than anything, what we have learned today is that Amazon wants their employees back in the office 5 days a week. And this will probably not be the last major company to announce something like this before the end of the year. So again, if you're a small business owner looking for talent, I would put it out there. If you're a recruiter, this is a massive opportunity. If you're someone that teaches consultants how to actually operate their own business, this is a massive opportunity. And this just goes to show that if you are a small business owner, I would highly recommend building your brand, because as this starts to happen across major tech companies, people are going to more and more become consultants or enter the gig economy. There will be more people that know, how to do what it is that you do. There may be more competitors in your specific niche or market. And the only way to differentiate is to build your brand. So God bless you. Have a phenomenal day, and I'll see you later.